Well, good evening. We're pretty stable with a number of people on, a little over 50. So we will get started right on time at 6 o'clock. I'm Steve Engel, Chancellor of the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Welcome to our new mocks. We're glad to have you online, and we count the families of our students also in being a mock. We're delighted you could join us for this online forum to answer questions really focused on the issues of commuter students, but I know we had one question, is it just for commuter students? There are a lot of questions that will probably come up and be of interest, and we will try and get them answered. So please feel free to stay on whether you're a commuter student or not. We just probably won't be responding to something about housing unless we have a lot of time. So this session will last approximately 1 hour, and the whole purpose is to answer your questions. Tonight we have Dr. Richard Brown, Executive Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. I'll ask him to wave his hand. And Dr. Jerry Hale, Provost and Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Dr. Yancey Freeman, Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management and Student Affairs. And Dr. Chris Smith, the Chief Health Affairs Officer at UTC. So we will be the ones responding to your questions. I want to thank everyone who's online here for participating in this. And since this coronavirus pandemic began impacting UTC, we've focused on two things: keeping our campus community safe and providing an outstanding educational experience. And these priorities have driven all of our decisions: safety and quality of our programs. So there are just a few of us responding to questions tonight, but I want you to know that we are supported by a team of hundreds of people who have spent thousands of hours getting our campus ready for fall semester 2020. We have some answers, we're working on others, and in some cases the questions are just now being asked. We're learning a lot as we go along every day. We know more and more about COVID-19. We know more and more about how to operate safely. And we will continue to get all the information we can, the most current up-to-date information, to make decisions that are in the best interest of our students and our campus community. We have a large number of submitted questions. We will go through those as the question and answer function as part of this Zoom conference will be up, and you can ask questions. We will get some of those answered in real time. But what we found is we couldn't get through every question. So we will copy the questions from the question and answer box, and we will then get the answers written up and post them on our coronavirus website with the link to this Zoom conference. We had a more general residential student conference like this last week. That video will go up, or has just gone up, as did the answer to the questions that were asked in that session. So right now, I'd like to turn it over to Susan Lazenby, who is going to be one of our moderators, and you can take it from here, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Engel. Hi, I'm Susan Lazenby from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, and my colleague Laura Cagle and I will be the moderators for today's webinar. Laura?
Our session today, as Dr. Engel mentioned, will focus on your questions about returning to school at UTC this fall. We'll begin with questions that were submitted ahead of time. If you have questions throughout the session, please submit them through the Q&A function near the bottom of your screen. Let's get started. Dr. Freeman, you have our first question. It's, will there be work-study jobs available this fall? It's very hard to find a part-time job that will work with my class schedule. Since all of my classes have been changed to blended or hybrid, I don't know what days to plan on being on campus or the hours I would be available.
Yeah, thank you, Laura, for the question. And I will just say in beginning that it's a pleasure to be here with our students, and am really excited about the upcoming fall term and what we're going to experience this fall. I know it's going to be an unusual one and one that is a new normal for us overall, but certainly one that as Mocs we'll be able to address and move forward in a very wonderful, active way. So the response to the question is absolutely yes. We will have work study jobs available for individuals who are not sure about work study. It's a federally funded program that students qualify for because UTC is an institution that qualifies for Title IV funding through federal financial aid programs. I also will speculate that we're going to have a lot more even biweekly positions, hourly positions for students to work this upcoming fall as well, based on some of the plans for food services and what we're doing with dining services and the delivery service that is going to be provided. So we will have lots of opportunities for students who want to work on campus to be able to work on campus. If you have been awarded work study for this upcoming fall, you should receive some information very soon about how to get that placement and how to interview for those work study positions that are going to be available very soon from our financial aid office. But yes, we are planning to have those jobs available.
Thank you so much, Dr. Freeman. The next question is for you as well. How do commuter students receive their 2 masks from UTC?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't have my mask sitting right in front of me, but there are some Power C masks. I think I see one on Dr. Brown's desk. Dr. Brown, will you hold that up? I'm really proud of those masks because they're Power C masks. They are branded UTC. Each student, faculty, and staff will receive them. We are planning to give them to the residential students when they check in for housing beginning on August 10th. And then we're going to mail 2 masks to all of our commuter students. And so you should receive those probably around the first part of August in the mail from the campus to your permanent mailing address so that you have those and you're ready and equipped to go, branded with the Power C to begin the semester.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Dr. Brown, we've got a parking question for you. Will there be a discount to the parking permit or maybe free testing only permits this semester, considering it will not be used as frequently?
Well, good evening to you, and we always get a parking question. So we don't plan to date to have specialized discounted parking decals, but we have provided access for all commuter students coming to the campus. All one needs to do is stop by our visitor center there at the corner of Maple and 5th Street. You can obtain a visitor's pass there if it's a very short-term visit. Let's say you're going to be there 45 minutes to an hour to take an exam, and park in our visitor lot there at lot 7 adjacent to the University Center. If you need access all day, there's some short-term options for you there. Again, you can go into the 5th Street parking garage. The attendant there will allow you to park there for $5 all day long. So we have made those accommodations for you. We've also expanded our visitor parking areas. We will post those on the parking website. Just go to the Parking Services website. You will see all those visitor locations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Our next section of questions will be about recreation. Dr. Freeman, we have a question that says, are there going to be any on-campus events?
Not only are there going to be on-campus events, we're planning a number of events in a number of different ways. So my team is getting ready to not only provide some face-to-face opportunities for students that are going to be appropriately socially distanced. Dr. Smith, I know you're going to remind me of that, that they're going to be socially distanced and also require masks. And so we're going to do some face-to-face events. We're going to do some virtual events for students to participate in, as well as some hybrid events where we'll do a live sort of session and live stream it. So we'll have 30 students who participate in a room that would accommodate that number and allow students to live stream. You'll see things like speakers event speakers who will come in and talk with us, and we'll invite and allow it to be live streamed. One of the really neat ideas that was really popular last year that we're planning to do virtually is a painting event that will allow students to come to the student engagement area, pick up paint supplies, go back to their residence hall or wherever makes them comfortable, and then they would live stream with an artist who would help in doing sort of a painting event. So those types of events are going to be things that we are planning for this fall in terms of events for students on campus. One of the other things we've talked about is doing sort of a movie night on Chamberlain Field that students can come out with their blankets and socially distance on the field and watch a movie, out on the field. And so fun events like that are going to occur for this fall. So yes, we're planning events to engage students so that you are not only engaging in the classroom, but it is just as important for us to engage you in student activities outside the classroom as well.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Similar question, will intramurals be available this fall?
Yes, we are going to do intramurals this fall also. It is going to look a little different this fall than any other fall that we've had. I know I keep saying that, but I want to continue to prepare our students for the new normal this fall. So two of the biggest intramural activities that we've had are flag football and basketball. We average hundreds of people who come in to participate in those events. We're not going to do those sorts of events for this upcoming fall for intramural activities, but we're going to do more individual types of activities and sports. Things like you'll see us at the tennis court with competitions there that will allow students to play tennis. We are opening up the riverfront and allowing students to come and do rafting. And so some of those individual intramural activities, you'll see more of those events happen instead of the ones that will cause a large group of people to come together at one time. So yes, we're planning intramurals. They're going to be framed in a little bit different way, but folks will be able to get their wellness and activity on for this upcoming fall semester also.
Thank you so much, Dr. Freeman. What will club meetings look like this fall?
Yeah, those are going to be done in I anticipate in interior spaces, inside buildings, and also outside buildings. We are asking student organizations to hold their numbers to 30 or below and to begin looking at and booking meeting space and rooms to hold those meetings. Some of our organizations have as many as 100 students who are there, and so we're talking with those organizations about innovative ways to meet. I mentioned to you about having a live meeting and then allowing other folks to Zoom in or live stream into the meeting. And so we're talking about those options. We are talking about students, instead of having just one meeting, having several meetings with that 30 limit that is there. So if you have a organization, because the math is easy, that has 60 students, you might want to have 2 chapter meetings or 2 organization meetings and allow individual members to come in if you want to meet in one of those rooms that are designated to fit that capacity. And so campus meetings are going to be still held, and we anticipate being able to do things face to face. But we are challenging our student organizations and the leadership of those student organizations to think about innovative ways to continue to meet, to continue to get the business done that they would like to accomplish, and to continue to thrive on campus and provide outlet opportunities for students.
We'll now move into a section of questions about social distancing. Dr. Smith, first question's for you. What are the university's plans to enforce or encourage social distancing?
Thank you, Laura. I think first of all, to encourage social distancing, we really have to educate the campus, and everybody has to understand why this particular thing is so effective. presenting the data that we have that show when social distancing is not adhered to and how much this impacts the rate of positive cases, I think will be a really good starting point. And anybody who has just paid a little bit of attention to anything on television lately will see the numbers continue to rise. We think a lot of that is due to the relaxation of the stay-at-home orders, and people are out and about now. So we really expected these numbers to go higher. We're planning to have a media campaign, student and staff education modules, and then we'll also have some social contracts that we would like the students to sign. These are multiple strategies that we've come up with that are very common throughout the United States and other colleges and universities. But, you know, we're also launching a program in regard to bystander intervention and how to appropriately ask those around us to please use their masks, to remain 6 feet apart, those kind of things. And I found it's been very, very effective. I was on campus the other day with Dr. Freeman, and we were looking at a dorm situation, and there was an employee who was bringing 2 or 3 other people to the area where we were about to look at dorm rooms. And the guy who was transporting these other gentlemen didn't have his mask on. And I just looked at him, I said, "Where's your mask?" And he pulled it right out and put it on. So I think we really need to have maybe the first couple of weeks of reminders and telling people, you know, we hate to say it, it's getting so trite, the new normal, but don't forget to put your mask on. So we're gonna do that kind of thing. We've reconfigured all classrooms and common spaces on campus to adhere to the 6 feet apart rule. And if the student continues to ignore all the things we're asking them to do in regards to social distancing or even the mask request, the Dean of Students office will intervene. And if this person happens to be an employee, a faculty or staff member, then human resources will deal with that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. The next question is for you as well. I'm afraid that we will not be able to socially distance properly in a classroom. I'm also concerned about students with health problems not being able to socially distance properly.
I'll start the answer to this question, and if Dr. Hale wants to chime in, he can as well. To my knowledge, there are no classes that will have a very large number of students, more than 30. You know, in the past, we've had 100 students in a classroom in those larger auditorium type spaces, but a group of individuals has walked this entire campus and looked at in every single solitary classroom and figured out how social distancing can be maintained with the 6 feet rule in all directions. And then we've also self-imposed a limit of no more than 30 per class. And this is actually a guideline from the American College Health Association and the CDC. So the larger classes have either been moved to a totally online format or grouped into smaller classes. So we adhere to those guidelines. And Dr. Hale, anything you need to add to that?
No, that's exactly right. And we believe that the rearrangements that we've done in classrooms, your classroom spaces will not look like what they would ordinarily look like. Certain seats have been belted off, so there are straps around them to keep students from sitting in them, to make sure that we can socially distance appropriately in the classrooms. And in addition to that, there will be a mask requirement for everyone who's in the classroom to further blunt the transmission of any floating or flying particles. So we are confident that we have made our classroom spaces as safe as we can possibly make them for you.
Dr. Hill, could you expand on how social distancing will be enforced in labs, since there will be a need to do group work in those classes?
Sure, and that's a great question. There are some classes on campus for which social distancing might seem a little bit more difficult than others, but we're still planning on social distancing for all of those classes. Those classes like labs either in our engineering classes or labs in our natural science classes. What will happen is You and your lab partner will be expected to socially distance while you're in class. It is also the case that if you're working on the same piece of equipment, that as one of you finishes on that piece of equipment and the other is about to use it, that piece of equipment will be sterilized and disinfected again before the next student steps up to use the equipment. And so this won't look quite like it may have looked in previous fall semesters with a lot of group work going on and students in close proximity. The group work or work with lab partners will still continue, but with appropriate social distancing and with disinfecting protocols in place in all of those classrooms.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hale. The next question is for you, Dr. Brown. What measures will be taken for social distancing in the UC, Mox Express, and dining to help decrease the spread of coronavirus?
Thank you for that question. We've worked extremely hard all summer to take a look at all of our dining services areas to make sure that we are in compliance with the CDC on social distancing. So you will see a redesign inside of all of those areas, especially within the university center. Pay attention to Scrappy's little feet that will be all throughout the dining areas representing 6 feet of distance when you're standing in line. Also in the eating area, we have distributed the seating for social distancing for 6 feet while you're utilizing that main dining area. In order to accommodate further social distancing, we've added the Chattanooga rooms, all A, B, and C, to accommodate this as a dining area to support social distancing. We're also encouraging students to consider eating outside the university center and adjacent to the Crossroads dining area. You will see us put up tents in those particular areas with a lot of seating that is also social distance. You're going to see us also add food trucks to the campus where students can secure food there and eat outside as a dining option as well. Within the Crossroads, again, we've social distanced that particular seating area to where students are 6 feet apart. And the food services, again, will be a lot of grab and go type concepts where you can order in advance and pick up your food and then eat it outside or in a socially distanced location. So we're excited about being able to add all of these particular options for our students as you come back to the fall.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Dr. Smith, how will UTC guarantee all of the students are wearing masks campus-wide? If not, what are the consequences for wearing one? I know you talked about this a little bit in a previous answer.
Yes, I did, Laura. Well, it's going to be really easy for everybody on campus to wear a mask. Everybody's getting 2 mailed to them or delivered to them or picked up when they check in, the 2 Power C masks that Dr. Brown showed us. So there shouldn't be any concern with getting access. Also, there's going to be multiple places across campus and in classrooms. Should you forget your mask, leave it in your car, leave it at home, or you forgot to wash it and it's still soaking wet and you can't wear it, there's going to be disposable ones for people to use that are CDC approved. And if you don't wear your mask, the consequences will be the same as if you do not abide by social distancing. Dean of Students Office for students and Human Resources for faculty and staff.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Dr. Hale, first public safety question is for you. If a faculty member is unable to participate in their classes, how will students be notified? Will that class have to halt for 2 weeks or will it continue?
Well, the important thing for students to know about this is that we've had protocols in place because faculty members, some faculty members are ill every semester, whether there's a global pandemic or whether we are largely healthy. And nothing is really going to change in that regard. If a faculty member is unable to meet his or her classes for a short period of time, then what will happen is a colleague will step in and fill that role for the faculty member. If it's going to be a longer term absence, the same thing will happen, but departments will find suitable instructors who will take over the teaching of the class and that for whatever the length of time is that the instruction might be needed. So your classes will not stop meeting when that happens. They'll continue to meet, and they'll continue to meet with a qualified instructor who's an expert in the course content that's being taught.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hale. Dr. Smith, the next question is for you. Will UTC provide free COVID testing? And what is the procedure if I test positive for COVID and my classes are on campus?
Thank you, Susan. UTC has obtained some free self-administered tests that have been given to us by the state of Tennessee, and there will be no charge to the student for these tests. If the student should need additional testing or a specific type of testing, we'll file the student's health insurance for them. There will not be a copay, and there is a very good possibility that insurance will pay for the test fully when they might not have in the past, because it would be a COVID-related lab expense. The question about if you get COVID in your classes or on campus is pretty straightforward. If you're a residential student, and I know this is a commuter conversation, but I wanted you to know what we're doing for our residential students. They'll go into isolation in a room on campus, no matter what, whether you are residential or commuter, this means no contact with your apartment mates. If you are a commuter student, we are asking you to isolate. Now, there's a difference between isolation and quarantine. If you test positive, you will go into isolation, which means you won't be able to have direct contact with the people with whom you live. And if possible, we would want you to use a bathroom that is totally dedicated to your use alone. Sometimes we understand that's not possible, so we will give you guidelines on how to disinfect. If you need to go into the living room of your apartment off campus, we would ask that your apartment mates kind of stay in their room so you're alone in that space. For class attendance, if you are asked to isolate or even quarantine in your residence, we would like you to contact your professor during the time of isolation or quarantine. And it may be that you really can still attend classes virtually and in real time. Maybe there's an online asynchronous option for you or an alternative assignment. The university will absolutely do everything we can to make sure that you remain on your schedule. And of course, your health will dictate how involved you will be in your classes. And Dr. Hale, if there's anything I've missed, please feel free to chime in.
I think you've hit it all.
Dr. Hale, the next question is for you to start. I don't want to risk being exposed to the virus and bring it home to my family. Both of my parents fall into the age range that puts them in an increased risk. I know we will be wearing masks and socially distanced on campus, but there's still the risk of asymptomatic people. As a commuter, I would feel much safer if UTC accommodated my preference to stay at home.
The thing that I would tell students in that situation, and I think there will be several, is that what I would be doing is I would be checking for online scheduling options every single day. So far, we still have open seats in classes that meet face-to-face for students who would prefer to be in face-to-face classes, but we still have open seats in online sections as well. And so I would suggest that you just keep checking and trying to modify your schedule. If you're not having any luck, and we also ask students to always use the waitlist function as well when they're looking at their schedule, because it's the waitlist data that we use to figure out whether or not we need to open additional sections. And so if you use the waitlist function and there's a waitlist that grows for a particular class, there's a good chance that another section of that class will be open, and chances are that that class will be an online section. If none of those things seem to be working, then I would reach out to an academic advisor or even the department head and let them know what your circumstance and situation is, because I am confident that we'll be able to accommodate students who want online schedules for the fall without much difficulty.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hale. We're going to be moving into the academic section of questions. And the first question is for you. 2 of my 6 classes have been converted to blended/hybrid courses. The other 4 are being offered online. I understand that this means that I will be expected to be on campus for the blended classes as indicated by each instructor. However, I do not live on campus, and the time spent commuting may interfere with being on time for Zoom meetings for online classes. How will this work?
This is a great question, and it's one that we've grappled with a lot. You're going to hear a recurring theme from me throughout the remainder of the academic questions, I think. And part of that recurring theme is for students to communicate regularly with their faculty members. The first thing I would do if I had multiple blended classes is to communicate with faculty members and let them know what your schedule is, and to try to make sure that for the days that you're expected to be on campus, that those are the same days for each class if humanly possible, so that you're not having to be here every day. You're having to be here on the same days for each of the classes that you have that are blended. As far as the commute time goes and the difficulty of going from an online class and then making a blended class, for example, we've thought a lot about that in the last few days. And in fact, the deans and I were meeting and talking about it today. Some campuses have increased the amount of time between class periods. We think that that helps with one problem, but creates another, because it leaves students with a lot of downtime between classes where they're likely to be milling around and less likely to be socially distancing. And so we've elected to keep the class schedule the same. What we're doing on campus now is we're conducting an inventory of all of the unused spaces on campus, and there will be spaces in a number of buildings on campus where students can go if they have an online class and they want to be on campus, where they can still be isolated from others and socially distanced from others, to participate in their online class and then make the schedule for their blended class. If for any reason a student has a difficulty with that sort of scheduling, then again, the critical thing to do is just to communicate with your professors. Let them know the challenge that you have with your schedule, and see what they can do to also help accommodate your needs. But we believe by making a number of spaces available on campus for students to be there, but still socially distanced from one another and have access to their classes, that will help with students who are switching back and forth between classes that are completely online and those that may be hybrid or blended in nature.
Thank you, Dr. Hale. Will there be grace periods for those being impacted by the pandemic?
We would ask every faculty member to just to be very cautious with students, and to be very understanding with the circumstances that students are facing. Again, the critical thing there is for students to communicate regularly and quickly with faculty members. The thing that frustrates a faculty member, even in the best of times, is for a student who's having difficulties to experience those difficulties, but not to say anything, and then to come late in the term and say, I'm sorry, I haven't been able to attend class for the last X number of days, and here's the reason. A lot of times a faculty member's first response is going to be, gosh, I could have helped you if I would have known about that 2 or 3 weeks ago. So what I would encourage every student to do is, the moment you begin having problems, whether it's health-related illness that is COVID-related or unrelated, whether it is a scheduling difficulty or anything else, communicate with your faculty members regularly, communicate with them in the most timely way that you possibly can. And I think you'll find that your faculty members are more than willing to accommodate your needs in those situations. And that should accomplish what the questioner is asking about with regard to a grace period.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hale. Could you tell us if the semester will be divided differently or what the academic schedule will look like? Is there a possibility of the school year ending early and omitting a fall break?
So the calendar has been modified for the fall semester in a few different ways. And what we're trying to do is keep students from leaving campus, traveling to COVID-19 hotspots, for example, and then coming back to campus at various points in time during the semester. And so what we have done is this year, Labor Day will be an instructional day and not a holiday for the campus. The second thing that will happen is the fall break has been eliminated for the fall semester, and those days will also be instructional days. We plan on finishing the instructional calendar before the Thanksgiving break, and so that students will have that entire week of Thanksgiving. Well, actually, instruction will end before that week of Thanksgiving, and then students will go home and they do not have to return to campus. All of the final exams this particular fall will be given virtually or online. And so once a student leaves for Thanksgiving, they are essentially finished with what they need to do on campus until the spring semester begins in January.
Thank you, Dr. Hale. How are art studio classes, such as sculpture, going to handle the studio art making portion of the class?
Right now, those classes will meet as they ordinarily would. There may be fewer students in them related to what the studio art facilities will allow for appropriate social distancing. In those classes, the students will be socially distanced from one another while they are either sculpting or whatever the studio art medium is that they might be working in, and they will also be socially distanced from their instructors as that's happening. And so we have a number of the same protocols in place for the studio art sections as we do for the lab sections that I mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Dr. Hale. I have a question for you that says, I'm a senior graduating fall 2020, but due to COVID-19, all of my internships I've applied to have been canceled, and I have been unable to complete my senior experience. Because of the limited amount of opportunities available at this time, I am worried I will not be able to complete it to graduate on time. Will there be any opportunities provided by the university to help those of us who need senior experience during this time?
That's a really good question, and it's one that we've given a lot of thought to. I would encourage the student to do one of a few things. The first is to check with whatever either staff member or faculty member in the department coordinates the department's internship program, because a lot of times those faculty and staff members will know of internship opportunities that are operating that students might not have heard of, or they will have other connections or other opportunities that they can make available to students that will fill the void left by the ones that students have applied for, but that have been shut down because of COVID-19. The other thing that I would do is, because you won't be the only senior who's in that predicament, and if there are not those sorts of experiential learning or high impact practice opportunities that are available to you that would ordinarily be available, it is typically the case that departments can provide substitutions or other kinds of high impact practices that will meet some of the same learning outcomes and some of the same goals. And so again, getting back to that common refrain that I warned you about, the important thing there is your communication. Reach out as soon as you can to the internship coordinator in your department. And if you are unable to locate the kinds of opportunities that you need, then what I would do is ask the department if there is some sort of substitute opportunity that can be made available to you. I will say that a number of internships will continue to operate during the fall. It is not the case that all of them will shut down. And what we're doing for those kinds of things, whether it's a clinical rotation in one of our health programs, or whether it's an internship in something like political science and public service, for example, is we are allowing our students to complete those rotations and those internships as long as the community partner is operating and believes that it's safe for our students to do that. So a number of them will operate, and for the others, I think we can either find internship opportunities for you or find substitute high impact practices.
Dr. Hale, how will tests and exams be administered, virtually or in person?
That depends on the class, and it also depends on the timing in the semester. For classes that are meeting face-to-face exclusively, then what you're likely to have is face-to-face exam periods for those classes. For classes that are blended, it will depend on the particular class. And for classes that are online, your exams are likely to be online as well. Though classes have the option of trying to take advantage of the testing center as well, but the testing center can only accommodate a handful of students at a time. So chances are those classes will be tested virtually. It is the case, as I mentioned earlier, that all final exams this semester will be given virtually and will not be given in face-to-face formats.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hale. Can the student successfully complete the semester without stepping foot on campus? For example, the student decides to live at home outside of Chattanooga and attend classes virtually.
They sure can, if the classes that they're taking are classes that are meeting exclusively online. They could not do that if the classes that they're meeting have a face-to-face component as part of a blended option for some of those classes. For others, I would encourage the student to talk with the professor, and if the class is blended, to ask whether or not the student who wants to do that would be able to take advantage of only the online opportunities. So as much as we hate to encourage it, because right now, if you've not been back to campus for a while or you've not been on campus yet, campus is really gorgeous right now. It really looks stunning. And we would love to have you here, but for a number of students, that's not the most practical option for the fall semester. And for those students, you should be able to put together a schedule that would be completely online if that's what you'd like to do.
Thank you, Dr. Hale. What if a student doesn't feel comfortable going to face-to-face classes, but needs those specific classes to graduate?
In most instances, it's going to be the case that there will be online options that the student can take that will also fulfill those graduation requirements. So it would be a very rare instance, I think, where a student would not be able to find face-to-face classes that will fulfill those graduation requirements. There will be some of those, and for some of them, and forgive me, I'm getting a frog in my throat. I feel my voice giving way the longer that I speak. But for some of those, we have no choice. For some of them, the accrediting bodies that accredit certain academic programs have been inflexible about the nature of the programs, and they demand an online learning option. And I think in most instances, you can understand why that would happen. Most of those classes where we've found inflexible accrediting bodies have been in health-related programs. And I don't know about you, but I'm not sure that I want somebody rendering healthcare to me who's never actually done it in a simulation lab or in one of our laboratory spaces, but they've only watched somebody do it via a virtual training session. And so there's a good reason for those face-to-face essential classes, why we have them scheduled that way. If a class is not face-to-face essential though, what I would do is look around for another alternative that can meet that graduation requirement, and or talk with the department head or program director to see what other options might be able to be arranged for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hale. Dr. Engel, we have a question for you about diversity. What steps will the university be taking to ensure more diversity and inclusion within the campus? Hiring minority professors would be a great start. Also, online, there have been several racist and prejudiced stories about Greeks, staff, SGA members, and other students. What will be done to address this?
Well, thank you for the question. I can tell you that we are working to hire faculty of color so that our students see faculty that look like them. That's an effort that Provost Hale and I have committed to, and we will do that. I sent a letter to campus on June 15th that called out a number of actions for UTC and for our leadership. We plan to have a number of discussions on campus. I'm going to lead 5 of these. We will have discussions in our multicultural center. Different clubs and organizations are going to have discussions, special interest groups. Our Student Government Association is very active and will have opportunities for people to engage, and we will have speakers invited. Due to the coronavirus, we may have attendance in some virtual options as well as some face-to-face, because we need to keep the head count down and practice social distancing. We are establishing a bias incident response team that Dr. Freeman is helping to put together. And we're asking questions. Who really said what? What do we know? We need to take action based on what we can verify. And sometimes it's a misunderstanding. I have this all the time where people think you said something or you didn't quite say it, but they're connecting A to B and it doesn't quite really reflect what people mean. So we're trying to give people an opportunity to clarify and talk and to engage with others so that we can learn from each other. We're trying to use our community to engage. We're reviewing campus police operations. We're trying to set a tone where each of us at UTC is looking at how do we open doors for our students so that they have every opportunity possible to move forward. How do we use our campus community to learn from each other about people who are very different than us? And so we are working very hard on this. We are taking diversity very seriously. And I think it will help our campus environment and the quality of our educational experience. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Engel. We do have a little over 10 minutes left in this session, so we will have some time to get to the live submitted questions. Dr. Hale, we've had a couple of different questions about hybrid or blended classes. Could you expand on what a hybrid/blended class is, and then how and when will students find out what days they will attend hybrid classes in person?
If you see a smile on my face, that's because I was just typing a response to Jennifer's question in the chat, which it asked almost exactly that. Hybrid or blended classes can take many different forms. Sometimes hybrid classes meet largely online or virtually with a few designated class periods where all of the students in the class will assemble, assuming that the class size meets the requirements or the availability of room space that we have, and the class size requirements that we have for the fall semester. Most of our face-to-face classes are probably going to be in a what we're calling blended, is actually a rotating class schedule, where students will attend roughly half of the class periods live, and then the other half of the class periods in a synchronous online format, sometimes in an asynchronous online format. The question of how you'll find out which set of classes you need to attend online, instructors will communicate that to students either before the semester begins or in the first couple of days of the class, so that they will let you know what day you're expected to be there. If it is almost always the case that if the days that you're assigned to be there, let's say in a Tuesday, Thursday format, for example, and you're assigned on Tuesdays, but Thursdays would work better for you, it will almost always be the case that you'll be able to find a student who will switch with you, or an instructor can help you switch. And so again, communication is really the key with your instructor. And but that's the way that those classes will typically meet, where you'll be expected to be in class face-to-face for a certain number of class periods. And then for the others, you'll be meeting either synchronously or asynchronously in an online format.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hale. Dr. Smith, we have a question for you. It is the flu vaccine requirement waived for students who are only enrolled in online classes?
That's a good question, and it depends is my answer. If the student is going to engage in activities on campus, they will still have to have the flu vaccine, because remember, the purpose of the vaccine is to protect a person from getting the flu. So if you were enrolled in an online class, say you were from a distance program, I actually am also the director of the School of Nursing, and we have a doctoral program which is 100% online, and we would have students, we have a student from California and some from Maryland, etc. They would not necessarily have to show proof of a flu vaccine, because there is a very, very slight chance they would ever come to campus. So if a student is going to have any campus time, they are still required to have the flu vaccine. And if anybody else would like to jump in and clarify that, that's my interpretation of what we're expecting. Now, if there is a religious reason for not, or a medical reason for not taking flu vaccine or any vaccine, there will have to be proof of that, a request for a waiver.
And the flu vaccine is not available until late in the fall, and really the requirement won't be enforced until January. So.
Thank you both. Dr. Brown, we've gotten a couple of follow-up questions about parking. Some students already paid for parking because they were assuming their classes would be back to normal in person. So for those students who have classes who have moved 100% online, would they be eligible for any sort of parking permit refund?
Oh, absolutely, they will be. All they need to do is to return that decal to the parking office, and they'll prorate a refund for them immediately.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Dr. Freeman, I have a question for you. Someone has asked, I've never been to the UTC campus and I want to visit the campus. Are we allowed to do that?
So yes, we don't have fences or gates around the campus at all. We would love to have students on campus. We are still finishing out our plans for this upcoming fall term. And so you may find that not all of the buildings at this point are unlocked, but we hope to do that around the 1st of August, so folks can get into buildings. I will say to you, though, if you are planning to visit campus, we do have a requirement now that you would wear a mask on campus. And so for individuals that I've seen on campus, I've been reporting back to work for about a month now. And so for individuals that I've seen on campus, they are wearing a mask on campus, but we would love to have you. I had a chance today to see some graduates out on campus taking photos. Always a really fun time, and the campus is absolutely beautiful right now. The lawn is absolutely manicured and looks wonderful, and so we'd love to have you come and visit, as long as you are following our safety guidelines around wearing a mask and socially distancing if you're on campus.
Dr. Hale or Dr. Brown, we've got a question about online lab fees and if those will be changing.
Well, online fees generally remain the same for courses that are taught face-to-face or online. What I'd like to emphasize is that if you're getting an online course, you're still getting the same quality instruction that one would get if you were taking that class face-to-face. What we have done, though, is that you will not pay an additional online technology fee or an online service fee if you're taking online courses. So we've tried to help the students that way to mitigate some of the financial burden.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Yancy, Dr. Freeman, I have a question for you from a student who has recently moved, and they are a commuter student, and they would like to know how to update their address so that they can receive their masks.
Sure, yes. You can update it in the student information system. Going to MyMoxNet, there is a prompt in MyMoxNet that allows you to click and update your address. And if you do not have your emergency contact information there, we will be sending a notice. Our safety and risk management folks send an annual notice to students to update that emergency contact information. But there is a prompt within MyMoxNet that allows you to go in and update your address and also the emergency contact information. So do that tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Dr. Smith, we've got a couple of different questions about social distancing and wearing masks while outside. Specifically, what if someone is having lunch on Chamberlain Field and they're spread out? Are they expected to social distance and wear a mask still?
Yes, of course. You have to take your mask off to eat lunch. So, you know, we're not that, we'll give you a little slack and we'll let you take your mask off while you eat your lunch. But we would ask you, and Chamberlain Field is a fabulous option because you've heard multiple people talk about being outside and having that option for eating. So that's a great option. So eat outside, don't sit right on top of each other, spread out some. You may take your mask off and you may eat and enjoy each other's company. But just remember that we really are trying to minimize your risk by being too close to each other. So yes, that's fine. You can eat outside without your mask. Is there another question?
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. As a quick follow-up to that, will students be able to wear their masks, their own masks, aside from the Power C masks?
Absolutely. As long as they are tasteful. We don't want any interesting looking masks that would make an old lady like me raise my eyebrows. But more importantly, we really want them to be made from an appropriate material. So the CDC website has how to make your own mask, and they're really, it's really quite simple. It has to be cotton, it has to be 3-ply, it has to be washable, or they can use the disposable ones as well. I would really hope that maybe as one of the activities that Dr. Freeman might oversee is maybe a creative mask contest, that we can see who has the most creative and tasteful mask. So yes, you can wear any type of mask as long as it meets the guidelines that the CDC says are important.
Done, Dr. Smith. That sounds like a wonderful opportunity for us to compare our innovative and entrepreneurial style on wearing a mask.
Well, I think I'm going to throw down the gauntlet, and I'm going to challenge all the people on this call right now to come up with their best shot, and we'll see who's most creative. So there you go. Oh gosh, Dr. Engel. All right, that's a B-.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith and Dr. Freeman and Dr. Engel. That's a fantastic mask. I have one more question for you, Dr. Hale. When will the fall schedule be finalized? In my case, I'm still only seeing on-campus offerings for my required courses.
If you're only seeing on-campus options for your required courses, the first thing that I would do is check with your either your academic advisor or the department head in the departments where you have classes that you're trying to complete. Because I think in most instances, there will be other options that are available to you, or seats will become available before the end of the drop add period. The end of drop add for this upcoming fall semester is August 23rd. In the meantime, I would just keep checking every single day because, again, we use the waitlist data that will be available to us to decide whether or not we need to add additional courses. And that will be happening between now and the time that classes begin. And so please just keep looking. Don't give up on us, but also reach out to your academic advisor and reach out to department heads and program directors to see if there is some other course that you can have, or what they're planning with regard to adding additional sections of courses.
Well, thank you. We appreciate all of you taking part in this, and Dr. Hale's last advice to reach out to advisor, instructor, departments. For anything that you have interest in, feel free to reach out to us. Emails are easy to find online. You can use telephone. Sometimes those calls are redirected to people who may still be working at home, but we will answer your questions. I know there was one on financial aid. We have a student emergency fund that students can ask for some emergency funding. If you've filled out your FAFSA, you're in good shape, and pursuing this with our financial aid office is a really great place to go to, because we know people are going to be strapped with what's hit us all with this COVID-19. So thank you for taking part in this. If we didn't get to some of the questions, we'll get answers posted. And I appreciate everybody joining us. And we're looking forward to a fall semester. It will be unique, but you're going to make progress towards your degree. We will do the very best we can to keep you safe and to have a high quality academic experience. So thank you for being a part of this. We're looking forward to seeing you virtually or in person on campus this fall. Thanks a lot for joining us. Have a great evening.